Om Tat Sat. Welcome to Gyan Bhakti. We focus on spirituality, Vedanta, and Sanatana Dharma. Please subscribe our channel for the mystical meanings of the scriptures and daily satsang. Our humble prostrations to all pervading Brahman, our worshipful Guruji, Swami Jyotirmayananda Ji Maharaj, all sages and scriptures, and to the divinity in each of you. We are currently exploring the scripture Mysticism of Mahabharata. Commentary is by Sri Swami Jyotirmayananda Ji Maharaj and narrated by myself, Swami Nikhilananda. In today's episode, we will be studying the death of Abhimanyu, Arjuna's son. On the very day Abhimanyu and the Pandavas were striving to break into the formation guarded by Jayadratha, a special boon that Jayadratha had received from Lord Shiva became effective. As you recall from the events recounted in Vanaparva, Jayadratha once passed through the forest in which the Pandavas were living and saw Draupadi. Completely enchanted by her beauty and seeing that the Pandava brothers were away from their home, he tried to persuade Draupadi to marry him. Unable to do so, he kidnapped her forcibly, carrying her away in his chariot. When the Pandavas returned home and discovered what had happened, they chased Jayadratha, gave him a good thrashing, and brought him before Yudhishthir. Ever compassionate Yudhishthir pardoned Jayadratha and recommended that they let him go. Before doing so, however, they chopped off portions of his hair as a mark of insult, leaving Jayadratha feeling the sting of humiliation for his acts of indiscretion. Instead of recognizing his own error, Jayadratha decided to revenge upon the Pandavas. With his intent, he went to the Himalayas to practice intense austerity and drew the grace of Lord Shiva. When Shiva appeared before Jayadratha and asked what boon he would like, Jayadratha asked for the power to destroy the Pandavas. Such was his hatred due to that insult he had received. Shiva said that although it was impossible to destroy those heroes, Jayadratha would have the satisfaction of overpowering the Pandavas for just one day in the future. And it was on that day when Abhimanyu entered the Kaurava formation that the special boon went into effect. Thus, when Abhimanyu entered the Chakravyuh, the Pandavas were stopped by Jayadratha, who was at the gate of that formation, and they could not overpower him in order to follow Abhimanyu and protect him. So Abhimanyu had no choice but to fight the Kauravas alone. He did so, showing tremendous valor until the great Kaurava warriors resorted to unrighteous means and joined together to attack him from all sides while he was deprived of his chariot. That was against the rules, but they did it anyway. By that violation of the ethics of war, the enemy was able to overcome and then finally kill Abhimanyu before the eyes of his relatives. Let's move to the next episode, the destruction of Jayadratha. When the news of the death of his beloved son reached Arjuna, he immediately vowed revenge. He pledged that if he had not succeeded in destroying Jayadratha, by sunset of the next day, he would bring about his own death by entering into fire. Learning of Arjuna's vow, the Kauravas were delighted. They thought that all they had to do was to keep Jayadratha away from Arjuna for 24 hours. Then Arjuna would enter into fire, all his brothers would lose interest in fighting, and there would be no difficulty in ending the war. Thus, when the battle began the next day, Jayadratha was kept well hidden behind the huge army of the Kauravas. In one confrontation after another, as he moved nearer to Jayadratha's position, Arjuna exhibited his extraordinary heroism. At one point in the fighting, the horses in the chariot of Arjuna began to feel fatigued, and Krishna told Arjuna to create water to refresh them. So, right there in the middle of the battlefield, Arjuna created a pool of water with the help of his arrows. Krishna then led the horses to the water, bathed them, soothed them, and finally yoked them to the chariot again before the eyes of all the onlookers. And all the while, Arjuna held off the enemies, fighting on foot against all attackers. This miraculous refreshing of the horses is the very throne of battle. In the midst of the battle is a reminder to every aspirant that in the battle of life, you have the capacity to refresh yourself at even the most difficult of moments. If you're doing your duties with your proper attitude, you will become inspired rather than exhausted under all conditions. No matter how difficult the circumstances, every action you perform that is backed up by devotion and wisdom will infuse you with renewed energy and courage. After refreshing the horses, Krishna drove the chariot towards Jayadratha at full speed. However, as time passed, the sun began to decline, and Arjuna was still far away from the place where Jayadratha was being protected by the Kaurava generals. At that time, Lord Krishna manifested his Maya and created a unique illusion over the battlefield of Kurukshetra. By his divine magic, he veiled the sun and made it appear to everyone that sunset was imminent. Then he turned to Arjuna and told him to enter into fire, keeping his bow and arrow with him so that he maintained the bearing of a Kshatriya. Eager to witness Arjuna's fiery end and feeling quite secure that he himself was out of danger, Jayadratha came forward from the army ranks and stood facing Arjuna triumphantly with his head held high. Seeing that the overconfident Jayadratha was directly in view, Krishna immediately withdrew his illusion and proclaimed that the sun was still in the sky. How wonderful. So we will cover this detail in tomorrow's satsang. This is Swami Nikhilanand. Om Tat Sat.